Welcome to the big story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Balita.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. Lawmakers met with President Bongbong Marcos over dinner yesterday, a gathering which attendees insist was not political at all.
And the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte is yet to move along, and already one influential religious sect and a former Senate president have expressed opposition to it.
And whatever happened to the slew of cases against former Bamban Mayor Alice Guo? Well, there has been movement in one case about her citizenship, and we have the details for you later on.
We're learning more, but still not a whole lot about the gathering in Malacanang last night in a so-called fellowship. More than a third of the House membership sat down with President Marcos.
Now, some attendees were quick to clarify, though, that there was no mention of the two impeachment complaints filed against Vice President Sara Duterte.
Nevertheless, the moves to oust the VP is yet to gain steam at the lower chamber. But wait, there's more. A third impeachment complaint could well be on its way. Marian Enriquez has the big story tonight.
Moves to oust Vice President Sara Duterte by way of impeachment. Lawmakers tasked to start a ball rolling on the process were in Malacanang. On Wednesday, leaders and members of the House of Representatives met with President Bongbong Marcos for a so-called fellowship. The guest list included more than 200 representatives led by Speaker Martin Romualdez. The gathering was off limits to the media, and most attendees are not saying much about what was talked about. Only that the event was a show of support to the president. The few who did speak up about the dinner said there was no mention of Duterte.
Hindi nga po napag-usapan yung politika.
For those questioning the timing of the Palace Fellowship, the Presidential Communications Office was quick on the draw. The event was scheduled way before the two impeachment complaints were filed against the Vice President this week. At the moment, the complaints are yet to move. House Secretary General Reginald Velasco says these documents will only be transmitted to the office of the Speaker next week. That's because they are still waiting for a third impeachment complaint. When asked if it's the majority bloc that will initiate this, the SecGen could only say this much.
I cannot reveal kasi meron kaming agreement na it will remain confidential until they actually endorse or file the complaint.
The House's last session day before the Christmas break is on December 18. The impeachment complaints should be endorsed to the Justice Committee way before that, since the lower chamber still has other matters on its agenda, like the 2025 budget. To fast-track the whole process, the Makabayan bloc is now trying to sign up over 100 congressmen and get their commitment to pass a resolution instead to move the impeachment forward. This way, discussions at the committee level can be skipped altogether. Despite President Marcos's belief that impeaching VP Sara Duterte is a waste of time, the spokesperson for complainants of the first impeachment is adamant. Former Senator Leila de Lima says PBBM is wrong, and a second complaint for Duterte's ouster will prove that. She also called Marcos's response irresponsible and criticized him for giving Sara a pass on her unprecedented behavior. And while an impeachment complaint is yet to reach the upper chamber, Senate President Cheese Escudero says they are ready to take it up.
Hindi mahalaga kung gusto namin ito o hindi. Trabaho ito na inata sa amin ng saligang batas. Gaano kahirap ang trabaho, bahagi na ng pagiging tao siguro yan.
For News 5, I'm Marian Enriquez. We are One News.
Now, coming out of the fellowship night in Malacanang is a manifesto of full support from House lawmakers to the president. Calling PBBM the symbol of the nation's sovereignty, House lawmakers vowed their, quote, unwavering commitment to the chief executive amid supposed attempts to topple his government. They also recognized significant challenges to Marcos and his administration and pledged allegiance to his vision for a new Philippines or Bagong Pilipinas. The House of Representatives added, quote, any threat against the president is a threat against the republic. We shall remain vigilant and resolute in ensuring his safety and the stability of his administration.
Well, Christmas is definitely around the corner, and it is said to be a season for forgiveness. But that is not the case for Vice President Sara Duterte. When she was asked for a Christmas message at the anniversary of the OVP in Lagawe, Ifugao, this is what the Vice President had to say.
Ito ay panahon ng pagpapatawad, pagmamahalan, at pagbibigay. Pero po ako, hindi po talaga ako magpapatawad. Meron sa atin mabilis magpatawad, meron sa atin matagal, at meron sa atin dinadala na talaga sa hukay ang galit.
Well, as we now know, 2 impeachment complaints have been filed against the Vice President at the lower house just this week. The Vice President says she will accept her impeachment if convicted of the allegations against her. VP Duterte also appeared to have taken another swipe at the President as she called on voters to scrutinize the 2025 midterm election candidates and the people backing them.
Huwag po tayong maniwala kaagad. Dapat po tingnan natin yung nangangampanya, yung kandidato. Noon bang nakaraang eleksyon, meron siyang mga pangako na ibigay ba niya?
Meanwhile, the Vice President is finding an indirect ally in religious sect Iglesia Ni Cristo, who agrees with President Marcos' stand that an impeachment will not benefit Filipinos. The INC has said that they are preparing a rally to underscore this point, saying there are more important issues that the government should be focusing on. The religious sect also said it is against any form of unrest.
Ang Iglesia Ni Cristo po ay para sa kapayapaan. Ayaw namin, ayaw po natin sa anumang uri ng kaguluhan na manggagaling sa kanino mang panig. Pabor kami sa opinyon ng Pangulong Bongbong Marcos na no to impeachment.
For his part, former Senate President Mig Zubiri is also not keen on supporting any ouster move against Duterte at this point. He claimed that several of his colleagues at the upper chamber share the same sentiment.
Because if there is a valid and verified impeachment complaint that will go to the Senate, we as jurors have to be very impartial about it. So I'm not taking any sides here. Ayaw ko lang sana magkagulo. At this point in time.
Let's now discuss the possible fate of the 2 impeachment complaints against Vice President Sara Duterte. With our first guest tonight, we have Assistant Majority Leader and Zambales 1st District Representative Jay Kong-hoon. He joins us tonight over Zoom, over the phone. Congressman Jay is also a member of the so-called Young Guns of the House of Representatives. Welcome to the big story, Kong.
Good evening, Ma'am Pauline, Ma'am Gretchen, and Ma'am Shawn. Magandang gabi po sa inyo lahat.
Okay, before we go into questions regarding the impeachment, Kong Jay, were you at the so-called fellowship last night in Malacanang?
Opo, isa tayo sa nagpunta sa fellowship last night sa pag-iimbita na Pangulo at naging maayos na masaya yung pakikipag-usap sa ating Presidente.
How did this fellowship come to be? I mean, sabi po ay matagal na daw nakaschedule ito. Kayo po ba matagal niyo nang alam? At anong klaseng fellowship po yung nangyari kagabi?
Matagal na pong naka-schedule ito dahil alam naman natin napakahirap din kumuha ng schedule ng Presidente. Dahil ang ating Presidente ay napaka-busy sa kanyang trabaho at naandoon kami upang magbigay suporta sa kanya. Lalo na dun sa mga threat na nakuha ng ating Presidente, ating First Lady at ng ating Speaker. So, naandun lang kami para sabihin na sinusuportahan natin siya at ating kinukondena lahat ng klaseng threat at nag-undermine ng ating Constitution at halingin bata.
Alright, pero kung ano po ba talaga napag-usapan doon sa fellowship? Kasi yung timing rin po niya was on the same night or the same day na na-file yung second complaint against the Vice President, the second impeachment complaint. Hindi po ba talaga na-discuss yan during the fellowship?
Wala tayong napag-usapan patungkol sa impeachment. Dito napag-usapan at naandun lang talaga kami upang ibigay yung suporta sa ating Pangulo ibigay ang suporta sa sa kanyang liderato, no? At sabihin sa kanya na kaisa niya kami sa pagpapaunlad, no, ng ating bansa, ano, at ang kabuhayan ng ating mamamayan. So definitely hindi na pag-usapan. Actually sa fellowship na yon, 2 tao lang ang nagsalita. Una si Speaker at pangalawa ang ating presidente, at nagpasalamat lang siya sa mga kongresista na nagpunta doon at nagpakita ng suporta.
Okay, Congressman Jay, ito kasi, no, I will not be the first person, no, na magtanong nitong question na ito. Kanina, naitanong to ng mga colleagues namin kay Congresswoman Luistro, at nakita ko rin yung presko ni Congressman Ortega mula La Union kanina sa House. Naitanong rin to ng mga reporters sa kanya, pero gusto ko rin itanong sana sa inyo, no, kung wala namang napag-usapan, bakit may manifesto of support? I understand, no, it's about the threats, etc. Pero normally kasi parang fellowship lang naman siya, kung parang party, ganyan, get together, biglang nanganak ng manifesto. Wala rin nabanggit naman na kung manifesto of support against who?
Una sa lahat, siyempre, nakita naman natin na napakahirap ng pinagdaanan ng ating presidente. Lagi natin tatandaan, the president's job is a very lonely job, no? Napakalungkot ng maging presidente ng Pilipinas, although ito ang pinakamakapangyarihang posisyon, pero napakalungkot maging presidente. At talagang naandun lang kami dahil alam naman natin na maraming kaibigan na congressman ng ating Pangulo. At ako, tinuturing ko ang sarili ko na isa rin sa mga kaibigan niya. At alam natin na pag may mga ganitong klaseng nangyayari sa ating buhay, meron nagbabanta sa ating buhay, gusto mong makakuha ng mga suporta, no? Lalong-lalo na sa iyong mga kaibigan. So naandun kami bilang kaibigan ng Pangulo, taga-suporta ng Pangulo, at talaga nagpakita kami ng suporta sa kanya na hindi tayo papayag, no, na magtagumpay ang kahit anong kasamaan, ano? At lalong-lalo na hindi tayo papayag na merong mag-undermine ng kanyang pamamahala dito sa ating
Congressman, if not talked about officially on the stage and on the podium, was this talked about on the sidelines? I mean, kayo bilang mga congressman, na pag-uusapan nyo ba? At what is the general feel or sentiment of our congressmen that you're getting? Because we also do know that there are tight timelines when it comes to the impeachment cases filed.
We maintain, during my past interview din, ng mga nakaraang linggo, lagi kong sinasabi na kami sa majority, hindi natin na pag-uusapan ng impeachment. Wala sa plano ng majority ng mga congressmen sa Kongreso, hindi na pag-uusapan ng impeachment. At wala kaming plano, no, na i-impeach din ng ating Vice President. No? At walang utos na ibinibigay ang leadership ng House. Ito ating sinasabi paulit-ulit. Actually, nagsimula lang naman ang usapin ng impeachment nung ito binibitawang salita din ng ating Vice President, ano? At talagang ang ating sinasabi, tinutuloy lang natin ang ating investigasyon through Quadcom sa Blue Ribbon Committee, at gusto lang nating masiguro na lahat ng ahensya ng ating pamahalaan na may mga budget na ibinibigay, no, ang Kongreso sa kanila, laging nasa isip dapat nila is yung transparency and accountability.
Well, is it safe?
Yun lang naman yung ating gustong siguraduhin.
Congressman, is it safe to say that you, majority, are on the same page as the President, that an impeachment would be a waste of time?
Talagang sa oras na ito, no, talagang nakikita naman natin na medyo kapos na rin yung oras, no, para sa isang impeachment. Although hindi natin pwedeng saklawan ng karapatan ng bawat mamamayan natin, no, na mag-file ang impeachment laban sa ating Vice President, hindi rin natin po pwedeng pigilan o saklawan, no, ang karapatan ng ibang mga congressmen, ano, na mag-file or mag-endorse the impeachment laban sa Vice President. Kailangan din itong iproseso, no, ng Kongreso dahil hindi naman natin po pwedeng upuan din ito. Pero sa aking kasing opinion, personal opinion ko, parang napakaliit na ng panahon, ano, dahil magpapasko na, magki-Christmas break na ang Kongreso, tapos by next year magkakampanyahan na. So merong napakaikling panahon na lang, no, para para harapin ang trabahong ito ng Kongreso. At
Pero
tingin ko,
Congressman,
kulang
meron
ito
po
sa
kasing
panahon.
pinag-uusapan na parang shortcut daw that the impeachment process could be all done in a day. Basta magkaroon ng 1/3 signature from the House, pwede nang i-transmit sa Senado. This was done back in 2000 against former President Joseph Estrada.
Hindi ako sure kung makakakuha ito ng 106 signatures dahil ang aking personal na opinion is talagang nananawagan din ating Pangulo na wag nang ito impeachment complaint wag nang magkaroon ng impeachment laban sa ating presidente dahil magkakaroon ito ng dibisyon at hindi makakatulong ito sa ating bansa Pero siyempre hindi rin natin hawak. Hindi rin natin hawak ang pakiramdam ng ibang kongresista pero sa akin parang hindi na ito hindi na ito aabot sa panahon.
Okay, so yun yung linawin lang natin that's at least your personal opinion, pero syempre 300 plus po kayo dyan, we've also asked a bunch of your colleagues, medyo iba-iba kasi yung sagot, and as time passes, papalapit tayo ng Pasko, ng eleksyon, at ng recess ninyo, medyo nag-iiba na rin yung ihip ng hangin. Doon po sa mga, kumbaga, tropa ninyo dyan sa loob sa Kongreso, is the sentiment like similar to yours, na parang ipagpaliban na lang muna?
We are part of the majority bloc ng House of Representatives, At ang bawat desisyon nga ng mayorya, pinag-uusapan yan. Nagpo-focus kami para mag-come up with a decision na pwede nating tayuan. At as of now, hindi na pag-uusapan ng impeachment at tinatapos pa natin yung mga kailangan natin tapusin, katulad ng hearing sa Quadcom, katulad ng hearing sa Blue Ribbon, At talagang tinatapos din natin yung ating mga legislative agenda. Hindi pa rin tapos ang budget, Kailangan tapusin din natin ang budget, bago magpasko. So, hindi yan ang priority, ng Kongreso ngayon. Kami sa mayorya, hindi yan na pag-uusapan, Paulit-ulit nating sinasabi. Hindi natin na pag-uusapan yan at walang plano, ang mayorya, na maging agenda yung impeachment ng ating district.
Pero kasi nga, Kong Jay, ito nga, pinag-uusapan na ng lahat ng tao. So, for us lang, you have to understand, kami naman na nanonood sa inyo at na watching proceedings go by, mahirap din paniwalaan na hindi siya napag-uusapan. Kami nga, everyday namin pinag-uusapan dito. Walang sawa, kahit sa party, sa pamilya, dinner, ganun. It's just hard to believe na hindi napag-uusapan. Can you explain to us? Talaga bang, ano ba yung priority?
Off limits ba yung topic na yun? O kahit
May
pa paano,
usapan ba?
Kasi ang sinasabi ng mga kaibigan natin sa media, ang sinasabi din ng mga taong nanonood sa labas, meron kaming pinaplano o meron kaming scheme, para i-impeach ang ating Vice President. Ang sinasabi namin, walang pinaplano ang Kongreso na gano'n. Hindi namin nakikita o hindi namin pinag-uusapan na magkaroon ng plano para i-impeach ang ating Vice President. Ang sinasabi natin, ito unang sinabi ng ating Vice President, hindi nanggaling ito sa amin. At kung meron man mga congressmen na nag-file ng impeachment o mag-i-endorse ng impeachment complaint laban sa ating Vice Presidente, ito ay kanilang kagustuhan. Ito ay hindi na pag-uusapan ng mayorya, Walang plano, walang inuutos sa amin para mag-file ng impeachment complaint o sumuporta sa kahit anong impeachment complaint. Ang sinasabi namin, malinaw. Tatapusin natin ang legislative agenda ng Kongreso. Kailangan ipasa ang ating budget bago magpasko. Tinatapos natin ang hearing ng Quadcom. Tinatapos natin ang hearing ng Blue Ribbon Committee. Wala sa agenda ng Kongreso sa ngayon at hindi ito na pag-uusapan ang impeachment ng ating Vice President.
With regard,
kung may mga nagtatanungan, kung napag-uusapan o napagkukwentuhan, oo, pero kung sasabihin ninyo na merong inutos, may agenda o merong hidden scheme ang mga congressmen na pinag-uusapan para i-impeach Ang ating Vice President, wala pong ganun.
Okay, pero with regard to yun nga, yung Quadcom, no, medyo may katagalan na rin. Dare I say, namimiss na po namin no, yung next episode. Pati po nung good government, medyo matagal-tagal na po. We understand, no, the rush for the budget. Ito talagang December, yun talaga yung, kumbaga, first and foremost on Congress's agenda for both houses. But, for everyone watching na sumusubaybay, medyo nabitin po, kailan po ba, may talk na pa kung kailan magre-resume yung mga hearings both for Blue Ribbon and for the Quadcom?
Kanina nagkaroon kami ng Zoom meeting sa Quadcom kanina para pag-usapan yung proseso, pag-usapan aming mga kung ano yung mga kailangang gawin at pending na panukalang batas para at least concerning sa Quadcom at alam ko ang Blue Ribbon through Chairman Joel Chua I think magkakaroon tentatively sa Monday na hearing ng Blue Ribbon at para pag-usapan yung yung pinal na kahinatnan ng ating report so pinag-uusapan pa din lahat ngayon dahil nga na-busy din tayo lalong-lalo na itong mga nakarang araw lalong-lalo na sa usapin patungkol dun sa pagte-threat ng buhay ng ating presidente ang ating first lady at ating speaker so sana matapos na dahil gusto na rin natin matapos dahil we need to move on din sa mga usaping ito.
Do you expect this to end before the Christmas break or will this carry over to 2025?
Well, I think yung sa Blue Ribbon Committee, it's winding up na, we are preparing na rin siguro para sa ating committee report at napakahirap din naman na walang katapusan din yung mga hearings, At sa Quadcom naman, pinag-uusapan na rin dyan mga kailangang gawin, mga batas na kailangang i-file, dahil this is in aid of legislation at kailangan din sa bandang huli, meron tayo mga bills na kailangan i-file. So, tinitingnan natin by next week magkakaroon ng hearing sa Blue Ribbon at sa Quadcom. So, abangan na lang natin.
Okay. Maraming salamat for taking our call tonight and joining us here on The Big Story. We appreciate your time, Assistant Majority Leader and Zambales 1st District Representative Jay Kongun. Maraming salamat, sir.
Up next, data privacy has become a hot topic online following the revelation of private messages between actors Marisa Racal and Anthony Jennings. More on that when we return. Keep it here on The Big Story.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. Jamela Villanueva's viral post about ex-boyfriend Anthony Jennings' alleged cheating with on-screen partner Marisa Racal was the talk of the town since yesterday. Now, a lawyer has pointed out that the screenshots of private conversations made public violates the Data Privacy Act. Here's Marymon Reyes with more details.
Social media has been abuzz since the viral cheating revelation of the ex-girlfriend of actor Anthony Jennings. Jamela Villanueva used screenshots of conversations Jennings had with on-screen partner Marisa Racal. Reactions ranged from shock, anger, and sympathy, with most favoring the side of Villanueva. But there are those who saw the posting of private conversations between people off.
You should always tackle things, especially your problems or marital or relationship problems, between the two of you privately.
Unang-una, minahal mo siya, tapos parang masisira siya dahil lang doon.
A lawyer also sees legal violations on the part of Villanueva, particularly on the Data Privacy Act, as even cheaters are still covered by this law.
Ang right to privacy is applicable to everyone, so even cheaters. Releasing screenshots or publishing it without the consent of the parties involved in the screenshot may be a violation of the Data Privacy Act, especially if you can identify the parties, if there are personal or sensitive information in the screenshot or the messages.
Though exposing private conversations publicly is against the law, such screenshots, like the ones posted by Villanueva, can be used as evidence in court. Attorney Falsis says a woman who is a victim of cheating can file a violence against women complaint on the grounds of psychological violence.
The Supreme Court may still find it to be psychological violence because of other facts. Like what I said, gaslighting, manipulation, if deliberate yung pag-inflict ng psychological torture, mental distress, pwede pa din pumasok yun kahit hindi kayo married.
But in this case, with the screenshots posted online, Villanueva may be on the losing end if a case is filed against her.
We understand that, if a person was cheated on, he or she goes through emotional turmoil and they, on impulse, might post. Pero yun nga, they might not know, legally, sila pa yung baka mabaliktad.
So ito na nga, nung pumutok tong issue, hating gabi isang gabi di ba?
Actually, it was the same night rin na nagkaroon ng martial law in South Korea. So, conflicted ka, no? Will
saan mo lalagay yung utak mo?
Pero at least yung martial law natapos ng 6 na oras, di ba?
Ito, mukhang matagalan itong issue, no? Parang yung impeachment.
Ito nga, nanganganak yung issue. So, ganito na lang. Simulan natin tong discussion dun sa group chat natin dito sa trabaho, di ba? May nagtanong, teka lang, may ano ba to? National relevance ba? Oo, meron. At mukhang as the hours pass, as yesterday passed, mukhang ang dami nang national issues na makukuha natin from this issue. So, syempre, unang na dyan yung slut shaming, victim blaming, no? Yung misogyny. Bakit daw si Maris lang yung binabash sa social media? Dapat daw si Anthony rin. But then again, yung mga legal aspects, yun, based on our report, diba? Data Privacy Act,
cyber libel.
Medyo mabibigat na
Pero
kaso
teka
yun.
lang hindi kompleto yung picture. So I looked into the other side because pwedeng kasuhan ni Anthony at ni Maris si
Jam
Jam.
Villanueva.
But on the other end, so Jam can also file a case, a vowsy case against Anthony.
Ayun nga yung sinasabi ng mga abogado, di ba? Ang sana dapat ginawa ni Jam is nag-file muna siya ng vowsy.
Tapos doon niya in-apply yung
Supreme Court
messages,
ruling.
text messages as evidence. But kanina ang tanong ko kasi, applicable ba yung vowsy kapag hindi pa kayo kasal? Kasi may nagsasabi na hindi mo pwede kasuhan kasi para sa kasal. So apparently it is applicable.
Kahit boyfriend, girlfriend
to husbands, ex-husbands, to live-in partners, boyfriend, girlfriend, fiancé, dating, and sexual relationships. So applies to acts committed by an intimate partner. So pwede, and it can apply under psychological distress. Pero I would like to point out that I was looking for the word infidelity and it was not there.
Yes,
I mean, if you commit infidelity, kasi marami doon na pag itrineten mo, kapag hindi ka nagbigay ng support, kapag parang...
Yes, but infidelity kasi, I mean, I think, we have concubinage and adultery, but that only happens when two people involved are actually married, right? So, because none of these parties are married, I think we can kind of push those infidelity issues.
That's why it's not explicitly
that's why we call it cheating, di ba? I think siguro may nuance yun between cheating and infidelity na parang kung kasal ka,
it's infidelity.
And it could be criminal.
Pero nakalagay din doon, pwedeng acts or omissions na that causes parang psychological parang impairment, distress to the woman. Yun nga lang, para sa babae lang yun. For men, the law is not yet, I think, present.
Yes.
Which is what the men have been arguing.
Yes, walang violence against men.
Naku, mukhang mahaba-haba pa itong usapan
Mahaba pa itong usapan. Hindi natin ito mariresolve tonight. So, tignan natin, I guess, kung if ever umabot to sa korte, maririnig natin yung mga legal arguments from people, from lawyers. And you're right. Iba-ibang interpretasyon So,
but the question is, will Anthony and Maris file charges against Jam?
Ito nakita ko on Twitter, yung mga nag-review for the bar, aralin nyo na daw ito. It might come out.
For sure.
In the bar next year.
Kaya kayo kapag niloko kayo. Wala, joke lang. Yun lang.
Speaking of kaso.
Speaking of reaching the courts, dismissed Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Go pleaded not guilty in the material misrepresentation complaint against her by the Commission on Elections. Go was only able to attend the arraignment at the Regional Trial Court in Capas, Tarlac via video conference. But her lawyer, Attorney Nicole Jamila, was able to represent her physically in the arraignment.
Yun din po kasi wala pa kaming update, wala pa tayong, pending pa yung sa immigration case, pending pa yung sa cancellation of live birth din, all pending. So we are asking na hopefully ito din is wala pa tayong, if we can say it's premature to say as of now na she misrepresented herself kasi in so far as we are concerned, Filipino citizen po siya. In so far as we are concerned, konektado po sila without dwelling much on the merits. Ang sinasabi po kasi namin is meron kaming may certificate of live birth si Mayora na na-issue sa kanya. So that's a proof na Filipino citizen siya. So yun po yung pinakang defense talaga ni Mayora even sa immigration case niya.
Meanwhile, Go's camp is still hoping her petition for bail with regard to the qualified human trafficking case in connection to her alleged links to Pogo will be granted by the Pasig Regional Trial Court. Some residents of Bamban even went to the court in Capas to show support for their former mayor.
Kahit po dahil sa sinasabi, siya lang ang nakapagbigay liwanag at saya sa Bamban. Saka mga eskola nagbibigay po siya. Oo, napakabait po ni Mayora. Wala ang masasabi. Napakabait.
Ang ugali niya, hindi Chinese. Daig pa po ang Pilipino, ang ugali. Mabait po si Mayora. Kaya hindi namin makakalimutan talaga.
We're taking another short break, but up next, the Philippine government has found a co-investment partner for a 500 million peso startup venture. We'll be speaking with Gobicor's founding partner, Carlo Chen-delantar, when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News.
Gobicor Philippine Fund is a venture capital firm and it has just unveiled its report called Philippine Horizons, Filipino Innovation in the ASEAN Landscape. In this report, they made comparisons on the startup ecosystems in the Philippines vis-a-vis our ASEAN neighbors. So let's delve deeper into this with Carlo Chen-delantar. He is the founding partner of Gobicor Philippine Fund and he joins us live here in studio. Carlo, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Welcome back after a year.
After a year.
Yes.
Thank
And
you
in
for having
person.
me. And in person. Thank you again.
Okay, so you just released a report. Is this the first of its kind? I believe you were basically benchmarking the health. Basically, it's a report card of the Philippine startup scene vis-a-vis that of our ASEAN neighbors.
Yeah.
So tell us about that and how did we do?
So we've been doing reports every single year since 2021. And we do alternate. So we do an ecosystem report last year, and then this year we consider it a mini report. Very niche. We wanted to understand which areas of the ecosystem we want to extract and say, these are the things we need to focus on. And this year, actually the past 2 years, I've been traveling around Southeast Asia to really understand what the startup ecosystems have been doing. And we wanted to see how far we are from everyone else and how well we could catch up. So we did a scorecard and we said, okay, if we chose and applied specific best use cases from each one, can we actually get there faster? And I think Malaysia is probably the closest, and then I guess we can talk more about like how they're different and parallels from each country as well.
Who's the number one in the ASEAN region? It's doing really well.
Really well. Well, it depends on how you want to fare what's really well, right?
Okay, I think even I can answer that question, so we can take Singapore out of the equation.
Yes,
okay,
it's a hub.
So let's talk about ASEAN x Singapore.
Sure.
Who's doing the best?
ASEAN 6, Indonesia in terms of total funding. And then you look at Malaysia as the next one, especially now they do a lot of fund of funds. The government is very much something that the Philippines can follow through. Thailand is mostly corporate-driven innovations and investments.
But how do you measure success? Is it mainly through investments, the total number of investments? Isn't it measurable in another way?
Yes, that's a great question. So indicatively, yes, because the amount of funding also shows that there's a market and the thesis could be actually proven that there's more investment opportunities there. But your other question is there are there other metrics? Yes, impact, societal benefits, nation building. Imagine if we have great entrepreneurs in Sulu, Batanes, Tawi-Tawi. That's what you want, and I think that's really why we built this report.
Okay, let's start from the easy one. Okay?
Sure.
So the easy one would be we got more money in terms of investments, right? 300% plus increase from 2023 to 2024. From like under $400 million, we're now at $1.6 billion. I think we have a graphic for that. That's a big leap. However, I did notice also from your report, most of it went to fintechs. So can you explain to us why everyone's so bullish about Philippines and fintech?
Okay,
Are we doing it right?
Right. So 2021 was the peak of valuations and investments because that was the pandemic. There was a bull run. 2022, 2023, there was a correction. Funding winter, crypto went down as well, and all these things. So it became a question of, are the startups here just burning capital? So now everyone's...
And there were scandals too.
Yes,
there were scandals.
yeah,
Like those, some startups, we're not going to name them, but they raised a crazy amount of money. And then we see, like, you know, the founders spending a lot of that money. Did that not, I mean, that's kind of upsetting because that's a really big amount of money.
Yeah, so I think financial responsibility is important when we look for startup founders. And I think 2022, 2023 really prove that the ones that could survive, they needed to focus on profitability. Because most of the time, these startups are actually burning money in order to gain market traction in this space. But it's changed. And I guess 2024 is a bit different story because fintech, majority are actually from corporate-backed startups or tech companies, and we want to see more of the independent. So although this is a rebound, it really shows that the startup ecosystem is maturing, but we have some aspects that we want to advocate because with that, now we can see independent or solo founders or founders, Filipino founders that can actually make
What's working for the fintech industry? We do know we have two major players, two major e-wallet and digital banks, but we have, I think we have 6
for digital banks
currently registered that will expand to 10
more
or 7 to 10. What's working for the others, the minor or apart from the 2 major ones, what's working for the other ones?
Okay, so we have this term called the iron triangle in the ecosystem. So in order for a digital ecosystem to grow, you have 3 aspects of it. Fintech, finance, e-commerce, and logistics. E-commerce, logistics, if you have specific slangs already, right, add to cart and all that, it's working. Logistics is lagging behind.
Right.
But fintech specifically, it's a game changer for a lot of places because now you don't have to carry change, safety, access to everything, and really it's made it easier for everyone to have access to any goods
Pero
and services.
teka lang kasi with the recent news, I think it involved 2 of the major players I was talking about getting into having users having unauthorized transactions in their accounts. Didn't that put a dent on, I mean, didn't you see any effects on the industry?
Well,
could you measure that?
Not necessarily because as any type of technology, there are still errors that happen, right? Bugs, specifically human errors, it could be a glitch. And that's something that a lot of these technology firms have to anticipate.
So it's a very minor setback, you're saying?
Minor setback. But in terms of reputation and how the market would change, that could make a dent in itself. But there's always ways to recover from it.
Okay, but Carlo, you know, one of the things that stood out for me in the report is how many startups are relying on debt financing instead of equity funding. I mean, what are the pros and cons of that? Is that good or bad for us because interest rates are also so high right now?
Pautang digitally.
Like you mentioned bridge loans also.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask, to add to Pawi's question.
Yes.
Because 2023 was about survival for a lot of startups. Utang sila. A bridge loan is basically pangpatawid, like literally, diba? Pero ngayon hindi na. So what is the difference? But also, if a company can actually make loans, for me that means they're good credit.
Yeah,
correct.
They're a good company.
Yes.
Kasi hindi naman papautangin yan.
Yeah.
Diba?
So there's 2 angles, right? Maturity and also the access of different vehicles for capital, right? I think 2022, 2023, valuations of startups were just through the roof. So with that correction, it's a question now of, do I take new capital that is low in valuation, which, you know, that's the benefit of the VCs. But also at the same time, if you have debt financing, then you can play, right? And because tech startups are also high growth, and their growth could go as low as 50% only to 300x in a 300% x in a year. You can play your cards, right? So I think it's a good indicator in terms of maturity, but in terms of what's next, I really want to see more independent founders actually creating for Philippines and regionally.
But how is that? Because you mentioned the iron triangle. Balikan ko yung iron triangle mo of fintech, which as we know is doing well. E-commerce saw big investment also from 2023 to 2024. You said logistics is lagging behind. Is it because we're an archipelago and medyo traffic and it's kind of complicated? Kulang tayo sa infra. Is that why that's lagging?
Partly, yes. Mainly because we have the most expensive last mile delivery rates in the energy, right? But that could change, right? Now we have hybrids, EVs, and with the price of energy and consumption for fuel, then you can see the prices go down as well. I'm very excited about that because now you decentralize logistics, not just within Metro Manila, but everywhere else. Plus, the most important thing that affects e-commerce rates, we're one of the most expensive on shipping fees in Southeast Asia.
Sometimes it's really so expensive.
It is. So a lot of the ports need to work together. Right now, there's the harmonization isn't there yet. And if you do that, it's so easy to make it work. So I'm really excited for that.
You talked about pushing more independent founders to be successful in the startup space. Yes. Is it because we see more of these startups being backed by big companies? And what kind of support would these independent founders need?
Sure. So there's three profiles of founders in the Philippines. Foreigners that see an opportunity here, they build something. Then you have well-educated, have resources of founders that are Filipinos that want to build something here. And then you have everyone else, right? So we want to help that part because a good example, during the pandemic, a lot of SMEs, when they joined e-commerce platforms, immediately over 10,000 at the minimum, became instant millionaires because it's access. It's access to market, right? So I think that's the beauty of it. Now it's more on the innovation side, right? However, there's also opposing forces. If I ask you, do we have a local startup champion that we can all agree on? Probably not, because the regional counterparts and rivals would say we have more ammo. We have war chest. Let's do something here because it's a large market.
Where does the government's matter in that equation? When we look at the ASEAN 6, of course, without Singapore, for me, I'm just going to put it bluntly, okay? We're the only democratic, fully democratic, parang American-style democracy, right? As we know, of course, Vietnam, Thailand, it's a bit different.
Yes.
Because it's easier. It's easier to regulate. It's easier for them to push reforms through. In that sense, the Philippines, I would think, mahihirapan tayo. It's age-old problem, not just for startups, for like established companies, ease of doing business, etc., etc.
Right.
We always hear the same thing. Do you guys encounter the same problems? I know you're getting support from the National Development Corporation, from the DICT, and as well as the OST, and that was in your report.
Correct, yes.
But really, on the ground, are we getting enough support?
We need more. That's the right answer. We need more, and we need it now. Because next year is a very pivotal moment because now the dark horse is actually AI. It optimizes everything. Who's ahead is not based on just digital innovation. They're actually solidifying by saying, can we create data centers? Can we keep all the information within the Philippines? All the international companies have to be based in the Philippines to work. So reform and policies need to change, but I think right now we have a startup venture fund already. So government is actually investing, co-investing with us. They match our funding.
Are you investing on AI? Are you saying, when you say
fund?
that it's a dark horse, is that good or bad for the startup industry?
Both. But for now, specifically, if you're seeing the growth of what's happening, we lack AI startups in the Philippines. And that also becomes a story of, do we just become a market rather than an entrepreneurship hub?
Wait, before we go, there was in our headlines a while ago, a $500 million investment into the Philippines. Where did that go?
Yeah.
Did it go to sustainability investments?
So we have a law, and part of it is a startup venture fund. So the government allocates $10 million each year, and that goes specifically to the startup industry. And that's every year, right? Yeah. So I think that's the beauty of the law, and outside of that, we're really pushing for visas and taxes because we want our diaspora OFWs to come back to build something. And we also want to make sure that if you're building a new company, you don't get taxed immediately because you want them to succeed the next 4 to 5 years.
But how's climate and sustainability?
In Southeast Asia, the past 3 years, it's top 2 in terms of investment. So yes, it's a good thing, especially in the Philippines. I think mobility is one of the things that's becoming an important topic too.
Oh yeah, we definitely feel that every single day. But you know, you're right. I was just in Portugal and so many techpreneurs over there. It's so crazy how the government has made it accessible. So hoping for the same here in the Philippines. Until then, we'll check back in with you on the next report, I suppose.
next year.
But for tonight, we have clearly run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us. Carlo Chen-delantar, he is the co-founder and partner of Gobicor Philippine Fund. The reports are available online, right? If you guys are interested to check it out.
All right, and on that note, that's the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.